Hello, and welcome back to Health and Wealth. I'm Ana Ramos, and today's conversation is about reinvention, about value, about what happens when something or someone is no longer seen as useful, and what it takes to see it differently. Laura Madden is an artist whose work quite literally transforms discarded material into beauty. Broken objects, forgotten pieces, things once headed to the landfill, reimagined into art that makes your soul smile. But what stuck me the most in our conversations was not just her aesthetic, it was the deeper question beneath it. What is my value? Laura's work mirrors something deeply human, the experience of outgrowing spaces, of feeling overlooked, of questioning your place in the world, and then choosing to reinvent. This season of Health and Wealth is about foundations, the inner architecture required to live well-being, emotion regulation, identity clarity, nervous system steadiness, and self-worth. Laura's art is about reinvention, but beneath reinvention is something even more foundational, knowing your value. So today, we explore what transformation really means, what sustainability actually asks of us, and how finding value in forgotten material can help us rediscover value in ourselves. Take a breath, let's begin. Miss Laura, thank you so much for joining us today. The only thing, I'm just so sorry on one thing, that you're not here in person, because I love your energy. I love your energy. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm there in spirit. I'm visualizing Mexico City.
Well, I know you love the city, and it's ironic that I ended up here, and it's ironic that I ended up living here so long, because we actually met in South Beach, and we met through my little social connector here, and it was during Art Basel that we met, and we just connected with each other. We started conversing, and then I saw your art, and I was like, I want one of those for my home.
That is the sweetest thing. And I love that reaction because I know I made a connection with you when you feel that way.
It's beyond. And now as I'm waiting for the new home to be built, and I see your things, and I'm like, this is beautiful, that's beautiful, and you're like, do you want me to save it for you? And I'm like, no, I want you to physically come to the house, and I want us to walk the space, and then I just want to tell you what I feel in the space. And once I tell you what I feel, then I want you to find me the right art that's going to connect to the feel. So I love that. I can't wait. I can't wait to have your art there, honestly. And, one of the things that I appreciate so much about you is it's your eye for reinvention and transformation, because you take all these pieces that people discard as, broken plates, textile that's out of fashion, old, gone, and you just create this whole new world, this whole new piece, this whole new place for it. So walk me and walk through those listening and seeing this. Like, what is it that you see? Like, what do you go to junk home? I mean, how do you get your pieces? Like, where's your inspiration from?
It's not that bad. I don't go to junk holes or junkyards, but sometimes I'll see things just out and about at a building site, or I work with a lot of interior designers, and sometimes they have leftover fabric samples or leftover bolts of fabric from a reupholstery job, or I might get something from a fashion designer who has these remnant fabrics. Some builders have leftover paint. I'm looking for the leftover. It's almost like I'm always looking out for the underdog, and that it's like, that person that needs a lift. I'm looking for those items, those materials, those found objects that it's like they just need a second chance. And so I'm almost kind of like asking myself, what else can this be? But at the same time, it's like I'm trying to defy the odds. This piece of quote unquote junk is headed for landfill, but I want to bring it back to life. I want to give it a new life. And so it really is kind of like, how can we defy the odds here? And it's such an underlying theme for myself, and it's something I want to pass on to maybe someone who collects my art, or just somebody who knows about my story. It's like we can defy the odds. There's always a way, and it's like there's never a bad time for second chances. So, it's tricky because there's some things that look like complete junk that I've acquired, and that is like the perfect piece for a base for a sculptural piece of art. Or I might get something that looks intact and pretty pretty high quality, but it's just not the right thing. So I have to be very like conscious. And I'm just trying to always tune into what do I feel with this piece. And usually I can get a sense, is this, could this be used for something that's also going to be a part of my collection, that will match my style, and that's going to be useful in terms of how I make art. So it's a tedious process, actually. It's very expensive in time.
I love that about you, and you actually answer the question that like had come to my mind. It's like, do you just go and say, "Oh, I want this, I want that, I want that," or do you connect to it and you just answer it? Like it's how I feel, right? So you're very in tune with yourself. And you said, this is part of reinvention and second chances and how this is tied to my story. So in this, I don't even know. So I want to know, together with everybody else, tell us about your story. How did you come across this? And did you ever, ask yourself, what is my place in this world?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I think I've asked myself that multiple times throughout my life. And, when I look at my life, I went to school and got a degree in kinesiology and physiology. And so I worked in fitness and, health coaching and that whole arena for many years. And then from there, I went into fashion. And from there, that eventually led me to art. And it's so interesting because everything I've ever done, in my adult life, my career path has revolved around transformation and helping people transform in different ways. And I think for me, it's just so important to help people find that next level. Even if you don't have to necessarily be, changing careers, something that dramatic, or moving across the world. But transformation can be just, evolving into the next level of you, learning new skills, learning new things, growth. But I will say, to actually answer your question, I I was working so hard, before I transitioned into art, I was working so hard and I was putting out so much energy, and I just wasn't feeling that level of fulfillment in return. And it really led me to this question of what am I doing with my life? You
Mm-hmm.
know, because it was like, am I even contributing, at a higher level to the whole, to the greater good? And that, I had to have this hard conversation with myself that, I needed to do something different. That yes, I feel like I'm giving back and I'm contributing to the world, but I also am feeling fulfilled. The more I create, the more I place art and grow my collector base. In getting to know people and build those relationships, I came to understand that the art is also a tool for transformation. It's right in line with all these other things that I've done that have led me to this place, working in fitness, working in fashion. It's like it's almost like art is an empowerment tool. And just like a great outfit, it's like a great outfit, but one that you never take off. Once you own a piece of art, it will live on your wall forever, and it will continue to give to you. So for me, it was really important, in terms of finding my place and, am I of any value in this world? It's like I need to feel fulfillment, but I also need to feel like I'm giving back. I'm creating value for others. And for me, I have a need, I have a desire to bring great value. It can't just be some value. I really have this burning desire to bring massive value. And at some point, I might feel that I really need to bring massive change to the world. I'm not quite at that point yet in how am I going to do that with my art? I'm not sure, There might be a way. I don't know. We'll see how this evolves over time, but it really is about bringing value to other people's lives.
Yeah, and I think, I think sometimes you just got to let things flow and let things be. And there is a bigger connection. There's a bigger purpose. When we connect to ourselves, I feel that like when we connect to ourselves and our energy and who we are, there's a book that says the universe has your back. And I really believe in that.
Yes.
I
It's such a
spoke to
good
the
reminder.
guest.
I love that you just said that. It's such a
Yeah,
good reminder.
well, what's funny is that I just spoke to a guest as well, and I said, listen, when you have all your ducks in a row, the next thing you got to do is that you got to just jump off that plane, open those arms, and go Geronimo, right? And you just got to jump, and I think that you have gone through so much, like your basics was building on. And it's interesting you mentioned kinesiology because I went through kinesiology, and it was what found that I had a deep rooted infection in my body that came as a result of a tooth. And it got to the point that I couldn't walk because it was affecting my entire nervous system. And it was my kinesiologist who found it. And it was really interesting going through everything with him because he would just go through this whole process and he'll be like, yep, your body doesn't want this, doesn't want that, it wants this, it doesn't want that. And I was like, how do you know that? He goes, your body's just saying it. Like my body would literally react to whatever he was going through. So it's really interesting that all that was your base, your core, because now you're doing that with pieces that are out there and you're saying, is this going to be giving back to the world? Is this going through me, right? I'm the medium. Is this going to give back? So I think that is just so beautiful to talk about your own personal reinvention and transformation into it. And it's interesting because you do have the mirror behind you, or not, the art behind you says love. And when we met, I was at that place in South Beach, right? And everybody told me I was crazy because it was a 2-bedroom and I turned it into a 1-bedroom. But I opened up that second wall, and when I opened up that wall, I was terrified, by the way, to do it. But what I wanted to be, it's like I just knew what I wanted the place to flow like. And when we're hammering, like I wanted to personally do it. I won't recommend it for people to do it, but I wanted to
You
personally
did
do
it.
it.
You did it yourself.
I did the initial one. I didn't do the finishing
Wow,
work, but I
that's
did the
bold.
initial one.
That's bold.
But it was at that moment that I dedicated the place. And what I said is, I said, this is a place of love. So it's funny that you have love in the back because, and you talk about reinvention and everything. And, I said, this is a place of love. And those who are not of good heart, and here's where it continues, those who are not of good heart, or they're not into being able to give love, let them feel uncomfortable enough that they don't want to come back. So I wanted the place to just be a place where people they just feel love. And it ended up being that the friends would show up. I never knew how many people were coming over for dinner, or, I would just get calls and they're like, hey, are you cooking? I'm like, yeah, okay, we're coming over. So I never knew, like,
I want to
it was,
come. I want to come.
the place is gone and it's been passed on to beautiful new buyers, and hopefully the new place will make it like that. We'll dedicate it. And I recently discovered my own true north, right? So my own true north is, does this make my soul smile? Right? And so I use that with everything, Laura, now. I say, does this make my soul smile? So I ask, does this piece of clothes, does this person, does this job, does this client, does it make my soul smile? And if it doesn't, I know it's time for me to let it go and to let it be its part.
I
So
love that.
it's really interesting. So if I could ask, what is your true north?
It really is joy. It's very similar to what you're saying, but it's like joy with an opening, like expansion. Do I feel open? Am I opening or am I closing off? It's a little bit more visceral, but it really is that full body sensation of, it's joy, it's opening, it's like this effervescent creating space versus, you know, contraction and,
I
wanting,
think that's beautiful.
yeah, to close off.
That is so beautiful. Does it create openness, right? I think that's beautiful. I'm starting to like almost ask everybody, what is your true north? You know, we're gonna start a whole thing. What is your true north? Talk to me a little bit about, because I know you're into not just art but fashion as well, and you truly embody sustainability. And it is such a trending word, right? So it's, we have to buy sustainable, be sustainable. And the problem with trending words is that they become a trend from a word perspective, but sometimes I feel like they lose their meaning, their essence, right? Their effervescence, right? Of what is meant. So when I say sustainability, because I know it's so deep for you, it's so personal for you, what does that mean?
Sustainability for me, on one hand, it's like common sense because I've been living in that space for so long. So it does feel like common sense, but also it's circularity. And so similar to how I shop for, fashion, it really started with my fashion and to now today how I create art. It's about using as many things as I can that are already in circulation that have already been made. And so, like with fashion, for instance, a piece of cotton, so much resources, so much water, energy, nutrients has gone into the creation of that cotton. And so, when you think about the resources have already been used. So it's like you're maximizing resources. So with, clothing, I mainly shop secondhand, consignment. And, with my art, I'm collecting as much as possible items that have already been made. They're already in existence. So it is that like that circular economy. And it's so interesting because this all started as an environmental stance, and it very much still is. But at the end of the day, it really it provokes my creativity with fashion and with art. It provokes my creativity, and especially with the art, when in using unconventional items and found objects, it allows me to create a result of unparalleled aesthetic. It really is. And I do think when you're shopping, vintage, antique, or maybe contemporary designer, it results in an unparalleled aesthetic. It's not like you went into Nordstrom and bought the whole mannequin. You can tell there's something different. So, in answering your question, long answer, I could go on about this
No, but I
topic.
love it. I love it. You're speaking of sustainability as a way of being more than anything else.
Exactly, exactly. It is a way of being. You nailed it completely.
But I love your concept because I remember walking one time into a dear friend's house, and she was a little bit about complaining about how people don't care about the oceans and don't care about the environment, and how she wishes people would be more conscious about it. And here I go to wash my hands on her sink, and here she's got, I'm not going to say products, right? But here she has this, the product name I'm going to say, but here she has this product which is like not biodegradable at all. It goes right into the oceans, does not help the oceans. It's in plastic. And I just said to her, I said, you know what? You are so right. And you know what I do? Rather than critique it, I said, you know what I do? I try to buy everything glass, and then I try for the refills to be biodegradable. And I said, I know I can't change this world, but I can definitely change it by every action that I take. Like the soaps that I use. And I haven't gotten to a point of what the clothing part that you do, but I try to do as much as I can. And I think that if we were to all try just a little bit, one of the biggest lessons my mom ever gave me and my dad was about leave this world just a little bit better than you found it. So, whichever way you can do it, right? Just leave the world just a little bit better than you
Exactly.
found it.
Exactly.
So, if I were to kind of, if I could narrow down, and I know it's impossible because you're just like this beautiful being of light, if I were to attach one word or two words or what your focus is, if I say reinvention, empowerment, transformation, what would you say your focus really is and the why?
You know, I feel like empowerment is really the underlying theme. It's really empowerment, and it's almost like providing tools for people that can almost act as a bridge or act as that almost like a catalyst to feel empowered, because when people feel empowered, they follow their inner guidance. They follow their heart, they speak their truth, they feel almost more like a sense of freedom to actually be themselves. So I would have to say empowerment.
Yes.
It's so important, and it's so important for me, and it's also a message to me. I need that reminder just as much as the next person and the next. So you get back what you give out, and I really want to share empowerment.
I think that's so beautiful, Laura. That's so you. And I think that it's just a beautiful lesson. This podcast is about health and wealth. And people say health and wealth. I'm like, no, it's not health and wealth. It's health in wealth, right? It's the role in how we live wealth in our lives. Because a lot of times, I started my career. Well, I started my career in hospitality. That's another lifetime ago. And then I went into the financial world, right? And I saw that there was a piece missing of that connection, right? It wasn't a race to, grow the biggest assets. I mean, yes, listen, having money makes life easier, obviously, but it doesn't, sometimes we lose track and we lose vision of what that is, right? So health and wealth is about that sustainability of what wealth is, which I end up calling it wealth being, right? It's like, what are the things, what are the elements that we need to have in our lives in order to be able to live a life of wealthness, right? Or wealth being. So I love the fact that you're talking about empowerment, because empowerment is so important, in today's world where we hear about, a lot of anxiety and ADHD and all this terminology that people put together. And I think that if what you said, we can truly believe in ourselves, that begins the process of empowerment. Like, you believe in pieces that you see, they speak to you, and you believe in them, and you create this beautiful new world for people to look at it.
Yes, yes.
What are you most proud of? Like, what makes you smile? What are you proud of when you see your collections? And I see the collections that you do. It's like, I'm like, where does she come up with this? Like, what are you most proud of?
I really am most proud. I might be going on a limb in saying this, but I feel like there are people who have come back and told me about things after purchasing art, living with it on their walls. And so I'd like to think that I helped to change their life, maybe in my own itty bitty way. But it really is just this notion of, you know, changing someone's life or bettering someone's life, like really truly helping to better their life. And that's really the thing that I would say is I'm most proud of and I'm most driven by.
I think that's so beautiful. And I'm sure you heard the phrase, be, you want to finish it? Be the change you wish to see in this
Let's
world
just see.
by Gandhi.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I
And
think
it's a
that
good
fits you.
reminder. It's such a good reminder because we all have good days, we all have bad days, but when you're having a bad day, it's like that quote helps, to turn it around in your mind. And if you could turn it around in your mind, it's like a domino effect. Things,
Yes.
it's like, oh, that's not that bad. That's not that bad. And then all of a sudden miracles start happening. So it's so interesting. That's such a good reminder. I love that you said that.
Yeah, it's funny because I had a bracelet for the longest that I found. I was going to a client's wedding in Vail, Colorado, and I go there and I see this beautiful bracelet. It says, "Be the change you wish to see in this world." It's done in a silver plate, and it just called me. And I didn't know the meaning behind it, but it called me. And years later, I'm talking with someone whose father passed away and he had inherited the business. And we talked a little bit about what's your drive behind it. And he says, when he passed away, I got this message. And it was literally, be the change you wish to see in this world. I never, ever took that bracelet off. Like, over 10 years, I never took that bracelet off. And I felt at that time, as I was working with him, I felt like myself going and taking the bracelet to give to him. And I finally give it to him. And he says, "Oh, no, 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 I'm not wearing that bracelet. I'm not wearing that bracelet." He goes, "That is yours." And he goes, "That is your saying." And I said, "No." I said, "Here's one thing. In life, we outgrow things, right? In life, our job is to grow and to pass on. And I said, I am passing this on to you now for it to be a reminder as you begin to create change. And he goes, what do you do for you? And I said to him, I said, you know what? I am the change. And it's time for me to pass the baton on.
Wow.
And the most interesting thing happened. He could have put that bracelet on by himself, but he literally puts it on and he turns his wrist, hands it to me, and he goes, can you please tighten it? And he could have done it himself. They had those nice little twists you just kind of pull. And you know what that said to me? It says, but don't let me go. It said, keep helping me along the way. And I think that we as human beings have that responsibility, Laura. I think that once we get to that beautiful point that we give, it's kind of like you say, you create this beautiful art that spoke to you and you created it with love, right? And it's funny that right behind you says love because I see you as that, right? I see you creating art with love. And I think that you later listening back or just welcoming the message that they have, I think that's so powerful because you are the change. You don't need to be the change. You are the change, right? And I think that's a beautiful place to be in this world. I think that's gorgeous. So congratulations.
Thank you.
What word of advice, because we are about biohacks, right? So what word of advice would you give to someone who perhaps feels a little bit overlooked or undervalued or outgrown out of their current chapter, their current stage in life, kind of like how you see pieces, right? So if someone sees themselves that way, what advice, what biohack would you give them?
Well, you could buy more art. For starters.
Of course.
I'm kidding. I feel like, and this does sort of relate to art, but uh, use your tools. Like what tools can you add to your toolbox? And for me, I have used fashion as a tool. I have used my home, how I furnish and how I want it to feel, how I want it to look. Art is another one of those things that can help you feel a certain way. And maybe you already feel that way. Maybe you don't. If you need that bridge, though, some of these tools, it could be a book, it could be a friend, it could be a group, it could be a coach. But it's like believe, but you've got to believe in yourself to have that foresight to acquire the tools, to ask for help. So I think it's like asking for help, but also, use the tools that, we all have at our fingertips. It could be a YouTube video, but use the tools that you have.
How do we become present to that? How do we become present? Because I think that sometimes it's, and I've seen this, people just feel like my world's come to an end, right? Like my career's come to an end. And rather than saying, I've outgrown it, right? And that's something that I've learned myself. I'm just like, and even with friendships, right? Sometimes like some friends fall off and we kind of miss them or regret it, or we sometimes turn on ourselves and say, oh, I don't know what happened, right? And rather than saying, I don't know what happened, to me, I'm like, let's be grateful for that person being in our lives or that career or that. All it means is that we outgrew them and we're ready for new.
Yes.
What would you like? How do people become present to that?
It's such a good question because everyone is different, but while everyone is different, we're all humans. And so the first thing that comes to mind for me is to ask yourself the question, what do I want? What do I want to see here? What do I want to feel? If you could wave a magic wand, what would this look like? Maybe the career is not where you want it to be anywhere, or that friendship, that needs to go. So what would the perfect friendship, or what would be nourishing to you? What would your life look like? And I think when we start asking that question, it's like the breadcrumbs just start falling on our path. The answers will come. And then the clarity, it starts to become more and more clear. And truly, I do believe when we are clear, when we're crystal clear, we have the vision, it can't not happen. You got to hold the vision, but it can't not happen when you're clear. It's like if you put that into the GPS is going to get you there. It's not going to, if you say Florida, you're not going to end up in Colorado. It will get you there. So it's like programming our own inner GPS, you know. But I do think it starts with that question: what do we want? Like, what do we want?
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. And you know what, Laura? It's interesting you say that because I don't know if you ever heard the terminology woody woofy.
No, I don't. I've never heard that.
Well, I've heard that when I did a switch of career from hospitality over to the finance world. And I was on my way to California to accept another job in hospitality. And I happened to meet somebody in the finance world, and they got me as a client because, my parents always raised me how they raised me to save, but not how to save. There is a way that you can do how to save that helps you with all of your goals. And of course you can go into taxes and we can go into the other stuff, but there's a difference between saving and knowing how to save. So when I met these people in the finance world, I went ahead and I became a client, and then they're like, you have to meet our VP. He wants to talk to you. So I went, and he gives me the whole spiel how I need to come into the finance world with my experience in hospitality. And I was like, I was on a one-track mind. No, I'm heading to California. I'm going to go accept the job there. And he just sat there and he says, woody woofy. And I'm like, excuse me? And he goes, woody woofy, Anna. And I said, I must have skipped that college course or something. I have no idea what woody woofy means. And he says, what do you want for yourself? And it was the first time in my corporate career that somebody asked me that. Because I made money for people, I fixed their businesses, I optimized them, I did everything for them. But the question was, what do I want for myself? And I think that's ultimately what you're saying as well.
How do you spell that? I want to write it down.
You got it. I'm going to send it to you. But
We'll
it's,
put it in the
I
show
think
notes. Can we put it in the show notes?
Okay, you got it. You got it. We're gonna put what woody woofy is, and and it just coming this towards towards the end, because I want to make sure that we stay true to. I wanted to make this podcast so it's nice, short, sweet. It gives people another thought process, another tool to put in their toolbox, right? As you said, I'm gonna steal that from you, by the way. I love that. I think that part of growing, right, and accepting the fact that we have outgrown things is to also let them go. And I always say, let them go with love. What would you say when you let go of something so that you say, this served me, but it no longer serves me, right? How would you let it go? Like you buy second clothes, secondhand clothes and things like that. At what point do you let it go? And when you let it go, how do you let it go?
Wow, that's a loaded question because I'm doing a lot of shedding right now in my life. To be completely sincere with you, that's a really loaded question.
sorry. I know it's at the end, but I'm sorry.
No, it's such a great question, though. This is a great question. I mean, gratitude has got to be the number one factor. Just being grateful for the experience, for the time had with whether it's a friendship or a piece of clothing or, you know, whatever it is, a part of your life, a membership, whatever. It's like, okay, just focusing on the good that it brought, the good times, the good experience and the growth that it led you to. So it's got to be gratitude. I think that's pulled me out of so many like dark places where it's like coulda, shoulda, woulda, or disappointment. Um, Gratitude would have to be it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, as we wrap up, and you are shedding right now, remember what your true north is, which is, does this make my body open, expand? So as you go, just ask that, just go through every single piece that you're shedding, right? Does this make me expand? If it doesn't, it's time to pass it on with gratitude. It helped me at one point, but now it's there to help someone else. And as we come to an end, though, I want to say, let me know how to program your GPS so that you can make it to Mexico City.
I know. And you're going to add life coach to your lineup of services on your site.
You're so cute. You're so adorable. I love you so much. I'm so glad we met that day.
For life coaching, we'll come for session 2, life coaching.
Let's do it. Well, season 2, I'm actually going to be highlighting some people's lives and the journey they've taken so far into their own wealth being. So, perhaps, invitation's open. I think you have a beautiful story to tell, even deeper than what it was today, and we'll just have a deeper conversation.
Yay. Yay. Thank you. Thank you.
You are so welcome.
I am very, very grateful to be in your world and to be a part of your world and to be a part of your lineup here. This is huge. And I consider next year also the new year. It's the Chinese New Year. I'm hearing so much about it. I guess it's a big turning point in the world, but I consider this also the new year, a new beginning. And this is such an incredible way to kick it off.
I love that, Laura, and thank you so much for joining us. I can't wait to welcome you. I actually had a guest here that she came for the weekend, and I'm so excited to show her what I love about Mexico City. And so I'm happy to have you here so that I can learn what you see in Mexico City and its beautiful art.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
There is something profoundly healing about seeing value where others see waste. Laura's art reminds us that reinvention is not about becoming someone new. It is about recognizing what was always there. In this season of health and wealth, we're talking about foundations. And perhaps the most important foundation of it all is this: your value does not fluctuate based on external validation. It does not disappear because someone failed to see it. It does not diminish because a chapter ends. Wealth being begins when you know your value. When you create environments, physical, relational, financial, that reflect that worth back to you. Maybe this is the true sustainability. Not just materials reused, but identity reclaimed. Until next time, this is Health and Wealth.